Chapter 12. Final Rounds. New York's Westchester County is home to more private country clubs than any other county in the tri-state area. Westchester also boasts an abundance of 7-Elevens, and in fact, that number is probably a close second to that of the country clubs, if there were such a race. Most of the stately properties are named after Native American tribes or their leaders, and in the northern part of the county, almost every club name ends with hills. The reason for that is obvious as soon as one steps off the first tee and/or walks up to the second. Caddies who line up for each season's highly coveted spots usually need to show some experience as a Sherpa in Nepal, or they need not apply. In the no-cart, no-cell phone days of the early 70s, I was invited to play in a member-guest tournament at one of the Hills courses, though which Hills it was has long escaped my memory. The field had all started at once in a shotgun sequence, and we had only one hole left to play after we completed putting out on the 8th green. As we climbed the 20 stairs to the next tee box, we quickly noticed that the preceding group had not only failed to tee off, but were involved in a frantic conversation that did not sound good. It seemed one of the group had just suffered a massive heart attack as he was teeing his ball. He was a guest, and, ironically, his corresponding team member was his cardiologist. The poor soul was dead. The doc, fully aware of procedure, let us know that nothing could be moved until the ME had arrived, and that was clearly going to be a while. We quickly learned we were the only group that needed to finish. The group on the tee with us, now a threesome after the unforeseen misfortune, had already finished and were just playing the 9th hole for a drink. So, after weighing the circumstances, including the shotgun scramble format, we decided that only one of us would hit the tee ball and get the hell out of there. I drew the straw to hit. A local cop had arrived and had placed a tarp over the body whose upper extremities were about 6 or 8 feet from the spot where I was to tee my ball. I was about to pull the trigger when a slight gust of wind moved a corner of the tarp, revealing the man's hand, complete with tee and ball firmly clutched within. Somehow I got the ball airborne. Someone suggested we say the Lord's Prayer, and upon completion of a quick recitation, we were gone. Then what? The program called for wives to join us shortly after for grown-up drinks and awards for stellar play, followed by a lavish buffet and dancing under the stars. As I understood it, the wife and family of the deceased had said about the evening's festivities, "Go for it. It would be his wish." Ultimately, management made a decision to cancel everything for fear the club would suffer a sensitivity issue. For a club like that, a member-guest tournament was one of the most aggressive marketing events of the year. So what had happened was a disaster that affected everything from the members to the kitchen staff and everyone in between. Here comes the expression again. It gets worse. Both of our wives were still at home and had not started out to join us at the club. We decided to make a reservation at a place equidistant from our homes and have our night out anyway. As I remember, the dinner was excellent and everything had gone well. We all agreed that the club should not have canceled the post-tourney event and that in the long run it would hurt the club. A check arrived as the girls exited to the ladies' room and was placed between the two of us. Earlier that week, I had received, unrequested, a shiny new Diners Club card and had slid it into my wallet with the same whatever attitude as only I could. I hardly knew the member I was playing with. Our wives were friends from college. My sliding the credit card onto the table was not meant to be obnoxiously impressive, but rather to mean I was open to any arrangement of our choice. I was, after all, supposedly spending the day on the member's nickels, so there would not have been any objection from me if he had offered to pick up the tab with an apologetic reference to the circumstances that had occurred. What I got instead was, "Oh, thanks, Murph," and no further words. Not too many words were spoken on the trip home either. I remembered I'd woken that morning thinking nothing bad was going to happen. The upside? I woke up the next morning. Fast forward to the all-cart cell phone era at the golf club of Plantation, where just about anything could and usually did happen. The club's GM was of the mind that business was business, and that any and all cash through his coffers was a plus. However, there was a group of elderly men from a local retirement village who turned the plus notion into a minus, and I mean a huge minus. The merry group would book 16 spots a month, and they were a disaster from the minute they entered the gates. Our pleas about them to the GM were to no avail, even though their reputation preceded them, and all the other clubs in the area had cut them off, much in the same way a bar would cut off a constant drunk. I mentioned elderly. For the record, I am elderly, My mother taught me to respect the elderly, and I have not only achieved that lesson in my interactions with elderly people throughout my life, but have further achieved self-respect as a result. The 16 gentlemen in question, however, I calculated to be, as a group, just north of 1,450 in years, with golf handicaps cumulatively approaching half that figure. They would arrive for their 7:30 a.m. tee time, each foursome in an identical Mercury Grand Marquis. Their golf bags were the originals from the early days in New York when they decided to take up golfing. The bags' bottoms were awash in duct tape, every zipper was useless, and there was not a matching set of clubs to be found in any of them. Among the 16 bags were at least 20 or more ball retrievers, and it became apparent to me that the retrievers were, in fact, the main reason for the trip for many of the group. Some of them actually prided themselves on their state-of-the-art retrievers. The staff had finally succeeded in convincing the GM that it would be the last time they could use the retrievers, which was tantamount to telling them they were no longer welcome. We won that battle, and we hoped the group of 16 would finally get the message. Somebody has got to die here pretty soon, or this entire story is going to come dangerously close to waterboarding. Well, lo and behold, we have a winner. It happened in the last grouping on the very first green. He took it to the ground in a slow, four-step sequence just prior to his fourth putt. Hand to chest, hat off, one knee, and then the full layout, all in total silence. I was privy to the event because I was checking on the progress of the entire menagerie at an early stage of play. It was a 3.5-hour course, and the guys averaged better than 5. By the way, I should mention that it was right on 92 degrees already. But hey, that's when the coupons kick in. The other two players in the green called his name, Lou, and asked if he was all right. Satellite coverage from outer space could have easily shown that the guy was not all right and was not about to be anytime soon. I moved quickly to the scene and, taking a page from my oft-watched police procedurals, declared the obvious. I then radioed into the pro shop and they called 911. I was tempted to tell them not to hurry, but I swear I did not. You may notice I mentioned the other 2 players on the green and not 3. That's because the third player was hawking balls with his spanking new retriever off to the right of the green. That guy, who I later learned was named Mel, came halfway up the slope and gave a glance. "What's up with Lou? Heat got him already?" he offered. "Get him in the cart and put it in the shade. I warned the dumb shit that it was too hot for him. Go to the pool, I told him." He then went off to another nearby pond with no further interest in what had happened. 2 co-workers from the pro shop eventually joined to help me, and I sent one ahead to let the other players know that Lou was no longer in the quarter skin game, which was going to reduce the pot from $4 to $3.75. I then let the leader of the group know he should go back to the pro shop, make a phone call or 2, and get in touch with Lou's next of kin. I learned that, apparently, Lou was a widower, but there was a semi-live-in maid, nurse, and all sorts of other information I didn't need to know. Soon, the EMTs had arrived and they confirmed my declaration, so I set off to deal with Mel. As I approached him, he gestured to the gathering on the green as he reduced his 600-foot retriever to a still usable 12 or 16. "Lou's not too good, I guess?" he remarked with a modicum of concern. "No, Mel, Lou has passed away. He is dead." "Are you sure?" "Yes, Mel, he is very dead. About the same amount of dead you will be if you don't fold that retriever up, put it in your bag, and make very sure I never see you anywhere with it again." I left him trembling near the water's edge. Amen. My father-in-law was taken from us far before his time. He was truly one of the finest people I have ever known. He did not die on a golf course, though that might have been his preference, but his passing and interment deserve mention in this chapter. My wife's aunt had secured a gravesite that abutted a golf course. It was a very small, almost private plot, and even though I was thoroughly familiar with both the area and the course, I was totally unaware of its presence. The fairway was no more than 40 or 50 yards from the actual grave, which was surrounded by family and close friends. It was a quiet and beautiful day in a peaceful place. Monsignor Walsh had just completed the final words when the moment was interrupted by a faint but clearly audible exclamation from the adjoining course of, "Son of a bitch!" Without hesitation, but with a bit more volume, Monsignor Walsh simply added, "Amen." My eyes moved immediately to my mother-in-law's face, on which I could clearly see a smile fighting its way through her tears. As we walked to our cars, my brother-in-law pulled me aside, lit a cigar, looked me in the eye, and said, "You could not have planned that with more perfection."